Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nikhil Parekh from Ahmedabad city in India. In this video, I shall be giving you a recitation of my poem that is titled The Perfect Handshake. This poem of mine is, of course, in my book which is titled Love versus Terrorism, Part 1, that has different poems on anti terror, peace, love, brotherhood. So, without wasting any further moment, I shall now commence upon with the recitation of my poem, The Perfect Handshake. When I shook hands with a waiter, interrupting his monotonous sequel of serving delicacies, the handshake was pretty lackadaisical, the aftermath of which rendered me with grease and a perennial stench of garlic diffusing from my palms. When I shook hands with a beggar, forcefully clasping his disheveled fingers in mine, the handshake was absolutely nonchalant. It was as if I had awakened a dying man from the course of his blissful sleep. When I shook hands with a pot bellied butcher, nimbly requesting him to relinquish his sharp cleavers before he executed the same, the handshake almost squelched my bones in fine chowder, and an obnoxious scent of foul fish and meat wafted profusely from my palm thereafter. When I shook hands with a clean shaven barber, smiling amicably as I noticed an effeminate tinge of polish on his nails, the handshake was as frigid as a slithering worm. Also, I had to scrub my palms vigorously after the same, to free them from the unscrupulous strands of hair and shampoo, incorrigibly clinging tightly. When I shook hands with a flamboyant model, gently entwining my hands in her dainty fingers, the handshake was as cold as frozen ice. The handshake was as cold as frozen ice, and I had to wash my hands with stringent acid soon after to get rid of the vanity aroma that nearly choked me to death. When I shook hands with the bespectacled doctor, confidently gripping the back of his hand in mine, the handshake was a replica of the penned encyclopedia, and I almost swooned on the ground after inhaling the despicable odor. And I almost swooned on the ground after inhaling the despicable odor of chlorine and potent antiseptic. When I shook hands with a madman, prudently catching him unaware when he was snoozing under the sun, the handshake seemed to last till eternity, almost engendering me to abdicate my breath, as the imbecile idiot displayed no signs of releasing me. As the imbecile idiot displayed no signs releasing me against the most resilient of my efforts. When I shook hands with the meticulous business tycoon, in an ambience inundated with majestic drapery and redolent flowers, the handshake was the most sophisticated that I had ever encountered. The handshake was the most sophisticated that I had ever encountered, and I deliberately rolled my hands in sordid sand after the same. To add some vibrancy, break free from the impeccable aura of the superficial corporate world. When I shook hands with the convict, when I shook hands with the convict, incarcerated behind iron bars of the dingy prison, the handshake was murderous. Also, the agony in his cold blooded eyes. Also, the agony in his cold blooded eyes. The nefarious devil lurking in his brow made me scamper, made me scamper at electric speeds towards the exit gate. When I shook hands with the drunken truck driver, soaring past verdant landscapes, the splendidly gorgeous valleys, the handshake was pretty bizarre as he treated my petite palms like the steering wheel of his vehicle, maneuvering them, maneuvering them frantically in several directions at a time. When I shook hands with the bare-chested washerman, when I shook hands with the bare-chested, when I shook hands with the bare-chested washerman in the midst of his fervent washing activity, in the midst of his fervent washing activity, the handshake was as slippery as the shimmering dolphin, and he almost squashed my hands against the obdurate floor. And he almost squashed my hands against the obdurate floor, overwhelmingly replete with a overwhelmingly replete with a soapy bath of detergent and carbolic. And eventually, when I shook hands with the soldier in a backdrop of guns, marching commandos, and hostile war, the handshake this time, the handshake this time was the perfect handshake. As he fearlessly entangled his fingers in mine, and the fragrance of his loyalty lingered till times greater than eternity in my eyes, and the fragrance of his loyalty lingered till times greater than eternity in my eyes, as I saluted his indomitable spirit, the tenacity in his persona to emancipate life for his nation. As I saluted his indomitable spirit, the tenacity in his persona to emancipate life for his nation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. From the innermost dormitory of my soul, I wanted to thank you for your stupendously victorious patronization of my poetry.